Hello.
Hi.
Welcome to GiCheon in the kitchen.
Welcome.
After a long running start, let's say, we finally got around to making our first video, and I thought, what's hot right now? What's popular right now? And several months ago, sourdough bread was very popular, so I planned to make a sourdough video. But since then, things have come up. But we're still going to make our sourdough bread video because I think sourdough bread is just that good, right?
Very good.
Have you tried my sourdough?
I tried your everything.
Yeah, I tried your, yes, she has tried my everything. I personally like sourdough bread. I especially like sourdough as a pizza base.
So what's the difference between sourdough bread and non-sourdough bread?
Well, sourdough bread is more of an old-fashioned way of doing things. Modern bread making uses dried active yeast, or even non-dried yeast.
You did that as well sometimes,
oh yeah,
right?
So you just sprinkle some yeast, or you hydrate it first and you add it to your dough, and it goes, and in less than an hour or maybe 2 hours you could proof bread.
So sourdough is more in the style like my grandmother made in Soviet Russia, because we didn't have those dry contemporary things, right? So it was more traditional style.
Exactly. So this is flour. Now this is unbleached flours. Okay, you have to use unbleached flour because that's still got some, not a lot, but some natural yeast, wild yeast on it. There's also wild yeast in the air that we breathe.
This is why sometimes in ancient times they actually only put the flour and the water, and it went up and became a dough with which you can make bread, like in the fairy tales.
Exactly. So this is a very basic and simple recipe. You just need flour, water, preferably unchlorinated water. So if you've got tap water, either let it sit in a container overnight and all the chlorine will evaporate off out of it. Boil it first and let it cool, or filter it with a carbon filter or some kind of filtration system, or if you've got reverse osmosis water or anything fancy like that, that'll work fine. Okay, but what you want is you want water, or if you've got bottled spring water, that's like luxury water for these yeasts. They think it's brilliant because it's got all the minerals they need and it's got no chlorine in it that they hate. Okay, but chlorine will inhibit the growth of yeast, so if you have any chlorine in the water, it will inhibit its growth. It's also not particularly great for your gut bacteria if you drink it regularly as well. So I personally use a water filter. This is a filter bottle that filters the water as you drink it. So to start off with, you don't have to use rye flour. However,
I like rye flour.
Rye flour.
It's called rosh in Russia.
Yeah, right. So rye flour is fantastic for yeast because it's got.
It is black, right? It's a bit dark.
It's like a browny grey colour.
Right.
I don't know if you're going to pick this up on the camera, but I'm going to use a third of a cup of rye flour. Okay, and you always pour.
What does it mean, third of a cup?
So, yeah, right. Okay, so the big one is a cup. The middle one is half a cup.
That's so it is written on the.
And that's a quarter cup.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's an old-fashioned method of measurement before we started using millilitres, and it's a bit more universal.
But it is comfortable because people can just buy it in the supermarket.
Exactly.
Right?
You can just buy cup measures in any supermarket, homeware store. Very easy to get. You can even use a cup because as long as you use the same ratios, it'll be fine. Okay. So you just got to remember how much you're using of every kind of flour, right? So then we're going to use a third of a cup as well of wholemeal flour. Okay, this is again unbleached. Ooh,
is that too much?
that's slightly more.
You can put a bit back here.
Just get that back off into the bag. Right. Oh, and your vessel. What you're going to use to make your sourdough bread in should be a container with a lid, but if it's got a screw lid, it could quite easily explode if you forget to burp it, because yeast produce a lot of gas as they reproduce. They produce alcohol and they produce gas. Okay, so they break down the carbohydrates in the flour.
So this is good that it has like this, because it kind of pushes
the lid
it from
can
the
pop
outside,
off,
right?
Right? It can
Like
pop
with
off.
kimchi.
Exactly. So I make kimchi in these jars. They're fantastic. So
And
coffee
then it
jar.
just pushes the lid outward.
If you've got a jar with the, like, could you pass me the kleiner jar?
This one?
Yes, the one with flip tops. These are great too, with an airtight seal. However, you do need to regularly remember to burp it, because once it's sealed airtight, it's like a little pressure cooker. It'll just explode if you let it ferment for too long.
So it's better to use a lid like that.
In my opinion, okay?
Yes.
If you are someone who can regularly remember to burp your jar, you'll be fine. But I occasionally will forget, and then you'll hear it just go boom, all by itself. It'll just go pop. No Google Assistant, I don't want you. What have you heard that's got you right? Okay, come back. Ah, it's still running, thank goodness. Oh, well, you never left us. So a third of a cup of the wholemeal, and we're going to use a third of a cup of white flour. Just because.
Did you do it each time when you made bread?
I usually use a similar ratio.
This is why you have so many different kinds of packages in the cupboard.
Yeah.
And all of them are open because you use all of them.
Yes. I mean, I do actually, once I've opened a bag of flour, because I've actually just opened these bags of flour, I might, is that wet there? Right, I might actually, I'll leave those there. So, I might actually put those in a jar like this. Where are you going?
Oh, I just wanted to dry because you said you wanted it dry.
It's fine. Okay, we'll pop those there now. It's dry over there. Great.
And this too?
And this too, yes. Now out of the way. Okay. So we just want to wipe around the mouth of the jar. Now I have previously sanitised this jar so there's no bacteria in it, and I use well, I do a lot of home brew, making my own alcohol. So I use Star San in a spray bottle. So you mix it with water, put it in a spray bottle, spray the inside, leave it upside down to drain out. Don't rinse it after you've sprayed it. Now this spray is quite a weak solution. It'll kill off everything that's nasty and you don't want in your thing, right, in your product. Okay, whatever that product is. But it will allow the growth of most yeasts that you do want, and acidophile bacteria, that's bacteria that like acidic environments, like lactobacteria that we want in our sourdough, because that's what gives it the tang. So the yeast leavens, it means it produces gas like carbon dioxide that inflate pockets of gas in your bread, which is great.
Are you putting lemon inside the bread?
Right, so yes, I should explain what I'm doing as I'm doing it. So I have on very good authority that a low pH, as in acidic environment, is safe. Okay, anything below 3.5 pH is safe against botulism. Okay, botulism or botulinum bacteria is a type of bacteria that produces a toxin that's incredibly toxic, makes you very sick, or can kill you. So the safest way to avoid any chance of accidentally giving yourself botulinum toxin poisoning is to lower the pH from the very beginning of a fermentation. Okay?
What's pH?
So pH is the acidity or alkalinity of a solution. Okay, so we've got a whole cup of flour. Okay, 1 cup of flour made up of 3/3 of a cup. A third of a cup of rye, a third of a cup of wholemeal, and a third of a cup of white flour. Okay, the two wheat flours that I've used are strong, as in they have a high level of protein in there to form gluten, which is what you want in your bread. It also holds onto the gas a little better when it expands, so you end up with a much more bubbly bread with a good crumb, which has lots and lots of little holes, lots of little, like on this. Well, I've made bread before, and here you can see the bread has a good crumb because it's got lots of nice little holes. I don't know if you can see that. Lots of nice little holes inside the bread. Okay. So that's one loaf of, that's not sourdough, so that's regular yeast I've used there. So that was a lot easier because proof it in like 24 hours and you end up with a really tangy tasting bread. But so what I'm doing now is I'm adding the juice of most of a lemon. I would add the juice of a whole lemon, but someone likes hot lemon drinks, so she had a little tiny slice off the top. So I'd use the rest of it to juice. Okay, so juicing a lemon, probably making it look like a lot harder work than it actually is. Just slice that enough. And then just juice the rest of it. Okay, so again, this is for a lot of reasons that I'm doing this. So first of all, acidity. It lowers the acidity, raises the acidity, lowers the pH. Just make sure there's no seeds in there. Right, great. So that's not a lot of lemon juice, but it's just enough to add a little bit of sugar that the yeast like. Is
there sugar inside the lemon?
Yeah. So lemons contain sugar. They also contain vitamin C, lots of minerals, lots of additional ingredients that will help the yeast thrive. Okay. Now I need a stirry thingy.
This one?
Is there a little wooden?
Wooden.
Yeah, it really should be wooden.
Is it wooden?
It is. It's very big. There's a little wooden stick in there. It's a chopstick.
A wooden chopstick?
Wooden chopstick.
Do you have a wooden chopstick?
Somewhere in there. I saw it before. 4 times I saw it.
I didn't know we have wooden chopsticks. I know we have.
No, here it is. Sent on a wild goose chase. Here it is. So generally wood is best. Stainless steel is okay, but we really do prefer wood.
I want to stir.
I wish I knew, but it's kind of one of those things where you hear it enough, you start to. I think because of the acid. Stainless steel will react with acid.
Water?
Yes. So you want to add water. You want to actually keep track of how much water you're adding. So I'm going to filter out a cup of water.
Okay. It's hard, you do that.
Yeah, I didn't really want you to, but thanks for the help. Right, okay. So you can't really stir it until you've added enough liquid. Right, okay.
Easy?
Now it'll be a lot easier to stir, right?
I want to do that, can I?
Okay, yes.
Oh, now it's easy.
Yeah. So it's not going to resemble dough.
Water?
Not yet. Wait until you've hydrated all the. So it's not going to resemble dough. It's going to resemble like a mushy paste. Okay, because the gluten's not going to form like that. It's going to take a little while.
Should we put out the rest of the water?
It's up to your eye, really. You have to kind of look at it and go. It needs more water. Yeah, probably a little bit more water.
I want to do that.
Okay, it's nice to have an enthusiastic assistant.
I'm not your assistant, I'm your partner.
Partner, right, yeah, enthusiastic partner. who
Should we put more water or not yet? Oh,
I
it's
think
hard now.
I think that is actually enough. Okay, it should look a little bit like porridge.
Oh, it looks now like porridge.
Yeah, so a little bit wet.
So you do you do all this each time you make bread?
No. So this is a lengthy process. So this is just the first of many videos we're going to do on sourdough bread
Because he makes all the time bread, but usually I do my studies and my own things. I don't know exactly what he's doing here.
I kind of mysteriously tinker around and then suddenly
And now
I can smell fresh baking bread.
He's doing all these things. It's just complex.
Right, okay. So, over the next few days, we're going to do something with this, okay? We're going to feed it, okay? We're going to take care of it. We're going to look after it. It's going to be our pet, okay?
So don't we need to put the rest of the water?
No. I'd say we shouldn't put too much more water in there now.
So it's going to be growing like a mushroom.
Yeah. Yes, because just like a fungus, yeast is a fungus. It is a type of fungus. So it prefers to be in the dark, so put it in your cupboard.
Sometimes you put things on the very low heat in the oven.
Yeah,
right?
But not this. We're not going to incubate this. Just regular room temperature, okay? If your room's temperature is high, it'll go faster and tangier faster. If it's a low temperature room, like this is quite a hard room to keep warm, so it's going to be quite cool in here. It could take up to a week before this is ready to bake with, maybe 2 weeks.
Oh my god!
Right, so next week's episode, we're going to see if this sourdough starter made it. Okay, now in the meantime, what I'm going to do is I'm not going to add any more wholemeal, and I'm not going to add any more rye flour to this. Or I might actually, wholemeal occasionally I might add, but rye flour I'm not going to add. That's had its day. Okay, what we're going to do is just keep adding regular flour, a quarter cup of flour, a quarter cup of water, and what we're going to do is we're going to mix that in. Then we're going to dump out, or take out, remove about half a cup of what's in there.
So are you talking about what you do next week?
No, every day between now and then. Every day.
Oh my god.
Every day. I know it seems laborious, okay? It seems labour intensive for a loaf of bread, but if you get a good sourdough starter, culture, mother, whatever you want to call it, a sourdough starter, if you get it to the sweet spot where it's nice and tangy, it's nice and lively, and it will feed your sourdough bread.
Feed your key.
Feed your key, yeah. Then it will keep forever, okay? And you won't need to look after it quite as intensively. The first 2 weeks are really the most labour intensive, okay? And it's a labour of love. If you can actually get something like this from your local bakery. If they do sourdough bread,
so what are you
give
saying
you
is
a little bit of this.
That you have this thing growing all the time and then you take parts of it to make bread?
Yeah. So
this is what they do in Korean restaurants. They sometimes boil the soup for 100 years and they add things and they take out and things of parts of the soup and it never goes off.
On that theme, I also make yogurt, which is the same exact principle. You take the yogurt out, you eat the yogurt, you leave a little bit, and then you boil some milk or you simmer some milk and then you let it cool and you add it to the yogurt starter.
And then
I'll do a video on that. It's basically as simple as I've just described.
And it always have the remains of the original.
Yes, so
all Koreans like
the
that.
bacteria and the yeast. Now, as I said before, the yeast, that's important to leaven. The bacteria, what the bacteria does is the right kind of lactobacteria eats the alcohol that the yeast produces. It converts that alcohol into like a vinegary acid, and it actually makes it more and more acidic. Okay, so the environment that's now there is kind of acidic with the lemon juice, but it's actually going to get more acidic. So if you eat that, if I taste this now,
is it allowed?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't want to.
You don't want to taste it?
No.
So, I mean, it's uncooked flour. probably not good to eat a lot of it, but it's kind of on the edge of tangy. Yeah, it's not very tangy, right, really, but it's more tangy than without the lemon juice. But in a week, that's going to be very tangy.
So our next episode
it's like eating lemon juice.
Is going to be about how it became in a week.
Exactly. Okay. So I'm not going to show you the daily videos, or maybe I will. I don't know. I might make a little daily update video. But this is the main video. Watch this video and follow the instructions, and you will have a sourdough starter. Okay.
Excellent.
We're never going to get this jar full. That's the other thing as well. The aim is to add and remove, add and remove, add and remove, but you only ever want it to get half full, really, because then it's got room to expand into, because that should go to that, yeah, without me adding anything to it. That's the idea.
Okay.
Is it should just be so bubbly, so gassy, that it inflates into the jar. Okay. So that's our first video. It should be a nice simple video for people to follow. Sourdough bread is a fantastic way of getting some natural leavening into your life. It's not very probiotic because when you bake it, it kills everything in there. But the aftermath of what the yeast produce is apparently very good for your body, and it's easier to digest the bread and get the nutrients out of it, because it's partially digested by the bacteria in the yeast. They do a lot of work for you, for your gut. Your gut doesn't have to do all that work and digest it. So that's where it has that positive effect on health. Sourdough bread is a lot easier to digest, and in my mind it tastes nicer as well. So those are your benefits. So thank you for watching.
Thank you for watching.
And we'll see you next week, hopefully.
See you next week.